How is it rocking, Dwayne Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dwayne Nation and the brand that is Dwayne Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dwayne Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo. The NBA Finals are complete, but before we get into that, Genoa, how you feeling today, my brother?
We Nation, JP. Last night we crowned a new NBA champion. It's I don't want to say it's a new dynasty, but it's a new era to say in basketball. And so, Justin, I'm feeling great. I enjoyed the finals, even though it was short lived. But it's always great to see who wins the title every year in our beloved sport of basketball. I'm doing great.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And nothing like the NBA Finals, even though I wouldn't rank it amongst the greatest. Obviously, a handful of blowouts and then
Yeah.
a handful of close games, but most of the time you kind of knew who was in control. Boston gets the gentleman's sweep, as we call it. And I mean, they're champs. They make Boston Celtics are now the most winning NBA franchise in history, passing the Lakers. They now have 18 NBA titles, which is a sick number. Well above the rest of the field, besides Los Angeles, of course. And we're here to cover the game, and then we're going to look at the outlook of what going into next season is already going to look like for both of these teams. But digging down into last night's game, kind of Boston, they shot out of the cannon right from the start. Like six quick points from Drew Holiday to start the game. They were up by 10, I believe, at the end of the first quarter, and then up by 20 at halftime. And most people probably could tell that it was a wrap after that. I don't know, Luka and especially Kyrie did not show up to that game 5. I guess they were kind of in the mindset of let's at least win one. They got their one game and they checked out. I don't know. It was not pretty. What do you think's kind of what are your thoughts on just the game itself from last night?
Justin, for the fourth time in the series, the Mavericks did not break 100 points, which is just so concerning. I mean, there has to be a stat on an NBA Finals team not the only time the Mavericks were able to get to 100 was when they won Game 4 to avoid a sweep. But all four losses, Justin, you have to look back at it and say, man, if we could have just scored our normal 105, 110 points a game, I mean, this series could still be going on, and we could still be getting ready for a potential Game 6 or Game 7. Justin, with the Mavericks, they were just kind of just very underwhelming all series. There was a little good, a lot of bad. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot from Kyrie as we wanted to. There was no revenge kind of tour thing there from Kyrie. He was kind of just there. Had some good moments in the games at Dallas, but every game in Boston, Justin, was um, it was yeah. So I would say with that, it's just them not being able to score 100 in any of their wins in that series.
Yeah, and you could credit that to how bad, or I guess discredit to how bad Dallas played, or just how well that Boston defense was. Jaylen Brown, I didn't know that he was that good of a defender, but watching the series, he clamped up. In Luka, did you see that video where they were like, it was Jaylen Brown and Joe Mazzulla, and they were like, Jaylen's like, is Luka still in? And they're like, yeah. And he goes, all right, keep me in, coach. And then bam. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, we saw it. And of course, Drew's always been known as a great defender, and he locked up Kyrie. I mean, we didn't hear too much from it. The only time we heard Kyrie's name was from the Boston crowd saying that he sucked. And so Boston gets their revenge, after all the bad blood that was, spewed between them both a handful of years ago. But Boston's looking good, man. I don't like to deem teams a dynasty. Obviously, they just won their first, but things could be setting up really nice for them. I don't see a huge foe in the East. The West still has some great teams with the Nuggets. You can argue the Timberwolves. The Mavericks are good still, of course, and the Thunder are growing. But the East they're going to coast. I think they're going to continue to coast. I would not be surprised if they win it next year. They have just such a strong unit. I mean, Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday still playing really good basketball. Horford, I already saw he's coming back for next season. Their only big-time free agent, and you can't even consider that, is Sam Hauser, who makes the occasional couple threes. So he was good this series, but nobody's in jeopardy of really leaving. Chris Stapps, of course, has the injury bug all the time, but hey, when he's on the court, they're winning. They're winning basketball games. And Joe Mazzulla is a good coach, so Boston's really set up for success. And this is just kind of, I think, their start. I mean, obviously they made it to the finals a couple of years ago, and Tatum and Brown have always they've been in this conversation since they joined the league. Uh, but now they finally get their first one, and I feel like it might be a little easier to continue to do so. So Boston, they're my favorites clearly for the NBA championship in 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely agree, Justin. When you look at the East, the teams get a little weaker. I don't know if New York can come back and have a great season that they did this year, get the second seed. With Milwaukee, it's such a weird situation there, Justin. There's something funky in Milwaukee. I don't know if they're going to keep Doc Rivers. I don't think they're interested in finding a new coach. I don't think he's a fit there. I think maybe Giannis might win out in a number of years. Um, let's see. Let's run down. Maybe Philly could be one team to look for.
And did you see that with Embiid? It was on the
Yeah,
I think it was TNT or maybe ABC, and
yeah,
he was like, "We bringing in people," and Paul George is sitting right next to him. So
yep.
that'd be
I
cool.
I like the Sixers now. I think that they just had, Embiid was injured for a good amount of games. Was he going to come back? Caton Wright win the playoffs, so maybe that affected. Who else got injured in the East? Just I know the Cavaliers were hurt. They had Donovan Mitchell. They lost the last couple games. And the Miami Heat. I mean, you can't rule them out, Justin. They're always going to be there. Heat culture is very strong. I'm missing a team. Let's see.
I mean, the
Indiana.
Chasers,
Yeah,
yeah.
Indiana could be back. They have a good amount of young players, so that's really it as far as challenges for the Boston Celtics. As far as the West, I do like the Nuggets to come back as a top team. With the Mavericks just making the finals, I think now they're another great West team. Luka's now going to be in the MVP conversation every year now, year in and year out. We do have Minnesota, the Thunder. And so it does make anybody can make a great case that Boston can go back to back. And there's teams like the Warriors that win their first championship. Next, they're back in the finals next year. Same with the Spurs, and same with the Celtics of the early years. They made the finals, won it, and then made it back again 2 years later against the Lakers on losses. So these teams that always make it and win it their first time, history says that when they keep that core together, that team always makes it back. So that might be something to look for now, and definitely the Celtics are the favorites for next year.
Yeah, and I mean, Boston now, like you look at it, and I didn't really have a clear favorite. I mean, we kind of wanted Dallas. We're Texas people. But Boston, I mean, their dynasty of their entire franchise, they're well ahead of the rest of the field. You could argue they're the best team in all of sports. Like, not, of course, this unit itself, but the franchise with the
Yeah.
Celtics winning 18 championships. That is nothing to slight. That is really impressive stuff. And I'm looking at the free agents just to see like what could shake up the offseason that could make a team in the East or just another team in the West really competitive. I mean, you got Paul George, we just mentioned, could be a Sixer. Maxi's not leaving the Sixers. He's a restricted free agent. Siakam is a free agent, which if he leaves Indiana, that could tear them down. He could resign, which I think was kind of the notion that he would. LeBron's got a player option, but he's not leaving LA, and so that makes LA not super scary to me or anything like that. OG Anunoby's has a player option too. If he joins a good contender like, I don't even know, maybe Milwaukee or something big like that, would be a huge thing. Because I agree, the Knicks, as much as they made it into the second round, they were number 2 seed. I think they're kind of capped their potential, and so I'm not sure where I could see them going super far compared to what they did this year. I am interested in where DeMar DeRozan could land. I know he commands the ball a lot, but he really needs to get out of Chicago and find a team that he can kind of win with. Because obviously he was on those Toronto teams that were good but never good enough, and then he gets shipped out, and then they finally win a championship without him, and then all those middling years in San Antonio and now Chicago. They had one, was it last year? They had like a hot start where they were like on fire with Caruso and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but then it's fizzled out.
That's the
Him,
story every
Levine,
year.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's their story every season. But yeah, so then moving to the Mavericks though more. They lose in convincing fashion. They lose pretty badly. A very different tale from this series to how they played in the regular season. You know, the bench was a calling card for them after the trade deadline, but it kind of fizzled out in this series due to just great defense. And I don't know if the spotlight was just too big for them. But Dallas, I know they made the finals, but it looks like they'll probably kind of keep the same core. Do you think there's anything they should do, or what kind of is their outlook for this offseason?
Justin, I do believe the Mavericks need a big man. I consider Derek Lively more of a four, a power forward. They need a center that can kind of score. Someone like an Al Horford, a younger Al Horford, and they need another guard off the bench. I praise for Tim Hardaway Jr. and it was never a thing, but maybe develop someone like Justin Hardy, who let me point out something. A couple years ago in the finals for the Celtics, they had Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser on that team. They didn't really get minutes like that or buckets in those playoffs or in that finals run. Look at them now, Justin. They were some key pieces. I mean, Pritchard provided some, big time buckets through buzzers and gave that team momentum. And Hauser, man, it seemed like every time he was getting a catch and shoot shot, Justin, it was making it in. So
For sure.
with the Mavericks now, they have their finals experience. They need to see what they got in a guy like Justin Hardy, and maybe keep a guy like Dante Exum who and maybe give those guys more minutes. Exum is a veteran. I mean, when you talk about veteran, Dante Exum is a guy that's been around for a while, been on almost every team in the NBA, but he showed some flash on the biggest stage. I feel like Jason Kidd didn't put him in too much, so I feel like going into next year, also, as well as the big man situation, I feel like it's time to develop the bench, give them more minutes. I know it's very attractive to go at Luka every night, dribble, 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 ISO, ISO, but it can only get worn out so much to the point where you get to the finals and you have a guy like Jaylen Brown picking you up from 94 feet. So definitely with the Mavericks, Justin, Gafford is awesome. Lively's awesome. Definitely don't get rid of them. If you can get another big man, maybe towards the draft, get a scoring big man and add some guard depth, just some shooting guards. They need another guard, ball handler, maybe like a Jamal Crawford was back in the day for the Clippers. Kind of like how Lou Will was a couple years ago for the Clippers, Justin.
Yeah.
When, it was Kawhi, Paul George, but then Lou Will would come off the bench. Something like that for Dallas. If they can add that, Justin, it's no doubt that they can be back in the finals. You got to think about it this way. They're in the conference finals 2 years ago, and then now this year they make the surprise leap to get to the finals. I just, add a couple more pieces, and I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't, hold, or doubt the Mavericks that they'd be back in here.
Yeah, and I will say, from our episode last week with Brandon, your take was almost. I mean, the one game Dallas won, Tim Hardaway had 15 points. He had 5 threes. I was thinking of you. I was like, hey, he called that out. So clearly, if Hardaway's getting 15, Dallas wins games. So Dallas,
Yeah.
you find that recipe. What's up with that? But what was I thinking about? Because there's a lot to look at more on this. I mean, with next season coming around, I don't think he's going on the move or anything because Minnesota was kind of who I thought could be a really good adversary to this Boston team. Really great front court play. Jaden McDaniels could have guarded Tatum or Brown. And I think Dallas could use someone like McDaniels, a really good wing defender who can also score. I know McDaniels isn't a great scorer, but that's kind of who I think could slot into Dallas and be kind of a really big piece for them. But yeah, Dallas has some things to worry. I mean, to kind of fix because Kyrie didn't show up in the series, and he's only getting older. I have some doubts about him. Luka, I guess the biggest thing, Luka too, complaining and bad defense was a story of the first handful of games, or just the series in general. I hope he gets to focus on some defense because he was letting people go right by him, and it wasn't great to watch. And obviously, some people were getting frustrated online. So Luka, I feel like this. I mean, he made the finals, so that's a great task to accomplish. But I feel like his image right now is a little tainted based on how kind of the series went and how he played. I mean, he was scoring. He still scored like Luka scores. But it wasn't the same, and Boston had his number for the most part. But yeah, NBA Finals, they're wrapped up. The NBA season is wrapped up. The start of next season is literally next week, though. The NBA draft is next Thursday. So we'll I think we want to cover that. That's really big stuff. Our Rockets have the 3rd overall pick. Um, it is being deemed one of the weaker NBA drafts, which is unfortunate, but there's still, I mean, there'll be some good players to scoop out of there. So that's then, and then obviously the NBA free agency is at the very end of the month. So a couple weeks of interesting NBA stuff. We're going to dive back into our football content because the season training camps in the next month, and we got to make some predictions and mock drafts. All of that football content's coming out, so stay tuned for both basketball and football. We're here for both of that. But yeah, that's our NBA Finals recap. Toast to the NBA season. We had another new NBA champion for the last 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
and so we like the parity in the league. There's a lot of different teams. As much as dynasties are cool and historic, we like to see the balance. So this has been pretty cool. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. This one's pretty quick. And yeah, this will be out soon. So thank you guys for listening. And Genoa, send us out as always.
Dwayne Nation, we love you guys. Thanks for watching. And hey, we kissed the NBA season goodbye, but football season's not that far away. And me and JPay cannot be more excited for fantasy season. It's just around the corner, Justin. It's just one more month that we're going to be able to start drafting and whatever it is, Dwayne Nation. We love you guys. And hey, as always, peace.
Peace.